All right, here we go live on the Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Jonesy and Brown. He is Mike Jones. I am John Brown. We're here to talk NBA this week. We're in that final stretch. Teams are making that playoff push. People are talking about the playoffs. People are talking about post end of season awards. So when it comes time to talk basketball, one of the people that we get, one of our go-to guys is my man, our guest this week. Now, Jonesy, his brother has recently been promoted since the last time we had him on the show.
I'm aware. I am
This
aware.
brother, first of all, let me tell you something, man. This brother is like a freedom fighter for NBA writers. This man has taken on the load of representing us, not just Jonesy and Brown. He's not the Jonesy and Brown correspondent, but this man is the self-proclaimed senior black correspondent for LibertyBallers.com. The senior black. Oh my goodness. Should we sing like "We Shall Overcome" or something now that you want to be your theme music? Or maybe something.
Lift
No.
Lift our voice and sing.
That's totally unnecessary.
Do you have do you have like the red, black, and green behind you when you do Liberty Baller Zoom meetings?
No, but I do sit in front of a green screen, which is just the black power fist raised like a Juan Carlos in the Olympics. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my thing.
There you go.
And they don't know what to make of it too. They probably have a huge problem with it. Because they're afraid to say something to you, aren't they?
Well, at this point, not anymore.
Are they pretty much just like, hey, look, you know what? He does good stuff. He's one of the best writers. I don't know if I necessarily like this, but you know what?
All right, hold on a second. Wait a second. Like this is not to disparage anyone else at Liberty Ballers.
No. We love Liberty Ballers.
Like listen, white, black, brown, Puerto Rican, Asian. We love all of our writers there, all of our podcasters, all of the people that listen and follow. So it's fine. I decided to just take up the mantle because you know what? The league is over 85% African American, and I feel that the media writers and people that cover each of these teams, there needs to be ample representation for that league. Like if we were talking about the NHL, you would expect there to be a lot of white writers, Canadian writers, whatever. But since this is a league that is predominantly African American, I feel that it is in our best interest to have some of the best and brightest African American minds writing and commenting about our league.
And that is you. That is, we're not trying. Look, we ain't taking no shots at
I
Liberty
do what I
Ballers.
can.
Do you look? First of all, as many enemies as me and Jonesy make out here in these streets, we ain't in a position to piss off Liberty Ballers. We ain't out here trying to make no enemies. We love everybody. It's all good.
Well, I've already made enemies with quite a few other national media types over in Los Angeles. Who write for a specific column headed up by a Mr. Bill Simmons. Excuse me. And I have my squabbles with like local radio personalities too, but you know what? They're old school, they're old guard. They don't get it. They don't want to get it. So you know what? I just stopped arguing with them because you know what? Less stress on my day.
And once again, and as Jonesy's right there with you, and me, I feel like I've changed a little. I'm evolving. I'm maturing because I was somebody who was very liberal with giving out the smoke. It's like somebody, had an opinion that I disagreed with. If you come at me the wrong way, you asking me for the smoke, and me being the person that I am, the generous man that I am, the gracious man that I am, I feel obligated to give people what they want.
Oh no, they can still get it from time to time.
From time to time,
time
of
to time.
course. But in general, I just think social media is a black hole. It's really, it's bad when you start going down that black hole most of the times. Like, if you're face to face and we have a disagreement,
your battles.
Yeah. If I'm face to face with somebody, or if it's someone I actually know and have a relationship with, we can go back and forth all day. With some random on social media, you might get one reply if you're actually talking about the sport, something relevant. But beyond that,
you out here talking about black holes, man. I'm the Black Buck Rogers, bruh. Get me in the space. I'm going in. If that's the black hole, I'm going into it. I'm just That's what I got to do. Well,
but speaking of black holes in social media,
oh boy,
that would bring me right to my first question for you.
Oh boy,
did you happen to catch LeBron James's shortly lived tweet the other day?
I did.
You're next.
Yeah, that one.
I dug it. I was okay with it. I'm a little bit. I'm not gonna lie and say that I wasn't a little disappointed that he took it down. I understand why he felt the need to take it down in that instance, because he's already had his dustings with Laura Ingraham, and I can understand him not wanting to deal with that again. But at the same time, he still communicated how he felt about the situation, so I still do kind of respect him for that a little bit.
Okay, now my thing with that was I'll say it this way. It depends on how you interpret his tweet. Right. For me, I interpreted it in a way where, okay, I'm okay with the messaging. But I've also heard some people interpret it in a way where he's putting a hit out on somebody or something like that. Like, you're next. You laugh, but at the same time there are people who will love to try to
that's fair.
like that or something. And so for that point, I'm like, okay, I get why you took it down. It was a little ambiguous in the wording. And these days, you give people an itch, they'll run 3 miles with it, trying to bury you just because they have nothing better to do. So from that standpoint, I get why it was taken down. I was just wondering what your take was on the whole thing. So you didn't even hear anyone say something like it was a threat or anything like that? Because that was one of the first things I heard.
I only took it to mean that in the wake of the Derek Chauvin trial, I only took it to mean that he's going to be the next one to have to face the music.
To be
That's
held
how
accountable.
I interpreted it. But
which is how I interpreted it as well. You're next to help be held accountable.
But like I said, no disrespect to all white folk, but some of them got a little upset about it, and I can understand why. It did come off a little attacky, which is fine. But you have to understand where LeBron James and African American people as a whole are coming from. We're just like, all right, it just felt really nice to win one for a change. So let's try for another one. Like we seem to have a nice little roll here and some momentum. Let's go for that 2-game winning streak. Why not?
We got that streak of 1 in a row after decades of losses.
After decades of L's.
No, I am honestly with the both of you on this one. Whereas I think it was one of those statements where it truly shows where this country is as far as race relations. Where I think most black people, with the exception of Jason Whitlock, all took that to be.
All right, timeout. I have to call a timeout.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that. We don't have to.
His name has now also been banned on the show.
We don't have to talk about Uncle Tom, Jason Whitlock. We don't have to do that. That's fine.
No, well, I'm just putting it out there that if there was that, for the most part, people, I think a lot of black people. Cannot say all black people felt that way, but I think for the most part, people took it for what it meant. You're next. We are now. There has been a shift in the culture, and now we are seeing cops being held accountable for their actions, for their choices. This is a police officer who made a choice in how they handled a police issue, and now you are next to be held accountable. I think for the most part, as Black people, that's what we felt. But I think that there is a portion of the population who want to derail that conversation, who want to stop going in that direction. So I think the tone of the statement was kind of low hanging fruit to the people who want to derail this conversation. If you don't want to see, if you're somebody who opposes police officers being held accountable, if you want to derail the conversation of the population holding police officers accountable for their choices, then that's what, you're going to take that as a threat. Hey, look, the top basketball star in the world is out here threatening cops. And I think that's why he took it down, because I think the need for accountability, doesn't need comments like that. Doesn't necessarily need comments like that derailing. We all know this police officer is next to face accountability. And that being accountability in a court of law, not vigilante justice, not anything outside the law. But we all know that that's what's next. But unfortunately, we can't give ammunition to the critics, to the obstacles, to the people who want to derail this movement. And I think that's why he took it down. I think I agree with Adio in the fact that I didn't want him to take it down. Didn't feel like he necessarily needed to take it down. But the fact, I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand why, and I also understand. I understand Jonesy. What you like?
I interpreted it the same way. I think we all interpreted it the same way. But as a writer and editor myself, I could see where the ambiguity is easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
As far as like derailing and commenting and all like that, like that's gonna happen. Like for every alpha, there's gonna be an omega. For every LeBron James, there's gonna be a Jason Whitlock. For every Stacey Abrams, there's gonna be a Candace Owens. You know what I mean? So it's like there's always gonna be that pushback from someone in our same culture group. So while First Amendment rights grant them the ability to say what they want to say, it also grants me the right to say you're not really correct here, and here's why. And you can choose to listen to me or you can choose to ignore me, but I have a right to say why what you said, what you did, what you think is wrong.
Agreed. All right, let's shift a little bit. Let's get into a basketball conversation that actually consists of basketball.
Let's talk about the fun stuff.
Let's talk about the fun stuff. Teams are making that playoff push. I want to get both of your opinions on it, because this is actually something that Jonesy, you and I have not talked about yet this season, and we got a guy like Adio on, and so I want his opinion. I want to know what the both of you think of this playoff format this year. How they're doing the playoff with the actual play-in game, and that's a trigger word for me and Jonesy, but that's a whole nother show. But how do you feel about that?
I was a fan of the play-in tournament last year. I really was. I gotta say, it gives that little extra element for the teams at the bottom half, and it still gives teams that are in like the 9th, 10th slots like the ability to, try to make that push, not completely say, all right, yeah, we're done. We don't have to do anything else. And when you look at the teams in the standings in the 9th and 10th slots right now, I have to just pull it up real quick, because I think it includes, because I know in East, Charlotte is in there. And if you want playoff, playoff LaMelo is something I kind of want to see. The Pacers, thanks for coming. That now we're good. Brad Beal and Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. First round against the Sixers, that could be interesting for like 4 games, but like that's it. And then out in the West, Golden State making that push, maybe getting that 8 seed. Utah, Golden State, first round. I would be open to see that. So Golden State is a game out of the 8 spot right now, so I am totally down for that. And New Orleans is right behind them too.
Mm.
So I'm enjoying this. I love the play in for the 8 seed. I enjoy that thoroughly.
Jonesy, you look perplexed, man.
Because I'm torn. I personally, I love seeing more teams engage down the stretch of a season. But when it comes to actual playoffs, 8 teams from conference is already more than half your league.
True.
So when we start adding teams, we're at like 60% of the league is in the playoffs. What are we even having a regular season at that point?
Go ahead.
It turns into the problem that baseball seems to be having, because Major League Baseball added an extra playoff team to their season this year, and for as much as I love the play-in tournament for the NBA, I don't like the extra wild card team for baseball. 4 teams, 3 division winners, and 1 wild card. That's cool. That's fine. When you start to take, and I agree with Jonesy on this, in the fact that when you add more teams to the playoff pot, it makes it less special to get into the playoffs. So I do agree with him on that, but it's good television, it's good theater. So especially in the NBA,
and I agree with that. And I do
like
agree
you're seeing
great television.
You're seeing Zion making the push that he's making over the last month. We're trying to get New Orleans into the playoffs. Playoff Zion, yes, please, and thank you.
Okay, so out west, there's another team I want to talk about. I actually posted about this the other day. The Phoenix Suns, and Chris Paul has them sitting in the number 2 spot right now out west. And in my opinion, this is easily the best team Chris Paul has had around him in his career. So
better than those teams in the better than those Clippers teams with
who was the second best player on the Clippers? Blake Griffin?
Blake Griffin, okay, yeah.
What does Blake Griffin look like in his career without Chris Paul?
No.
DeAndre Jordan?
Well, look, DeAndre Jordan's in NBA years.
Those guys are great athletes who were put in a position by Chris Paul to be excellent finishers. Blake Griffin has developed his skill set over the years, but early in his career, especially in those years, he was an athlete. He was not a basketball player.
Yeah.
Chris Paul set those guys up.
It was Lob City. It was Lob City. They were exciting to watch because it was Seattle. It was Seattle Supersonics light. Whereas I think there was a little more meat to the steak in Seattle when it was Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. But what attracted you to Seattle back in those early 90s, or I should say late 90s, sorry. But you knew you were going to get Gary Payton, you were going to get Sean Kemp, and you were going to get all those exciting dunks and Sports Center highlights. And I think that's what you got with the Clippers early on when it was Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. You got Sports Center plays, you got all those alley-oops, you got all those dunks. But when it came time to actually sit down and win a series, so I
would say the best team that Chris Paul has been on was the Rockets teams, and I'll tell you why. Because Chris Paul never really had a backcourt running mate like James Harden, and the Rockets were one Chris Paul hamstring away from a finals trip. Had Chris Paul not gotten injured in that series against Golden State, Rockets would have made that finals.
They were up 3-1 when he got hurt.
And it's a damn shame that Chris Paul was robbed of that, because then he has to continue to carry this moniker of, can he get it done in the playoffs?
The only reason I didn't say Now, the only reason I didn't say Houston was the better team than Suns around Chris Paul was because of the way D'Antoni with that system would stagger Harden and Paul's minutes and not really use them together too much.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
So Harden and Paul didn't really get the benefit of
I
playing
get that.
with each other as much as, So with with the guys on the floor consistently with Chris Paul in Phoenix, I think this is the best unit he's had out there with him.
So let me ask you this.
Also, last thing about the Rockets team. Last thing about those Rockets team. Shout out to Daryl Moore, who's the GM. He was like, listen, I know the Warriors got KD and Clay and Kyrie and Draymond all like that. I'm not just gonna bow at the feet of Golden State. We're going at them. F it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting Chris Paul. I'm gonna stay competitive. I'm not just gonna hand them the Western Conference. Just no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, Jonesy. If this is the best team that Chris Paul has been around, what's the ceiling for this team this year?
How healthy is LeBron in the playoffs? That everything hinges on that. Because if LeBron is not or AD are not 100% in the playoffs, I think Phoenix's ceiling is a finals run. I'm not saying I expect them to beat Utah, but I think they're capable of beating Utah.
I would agree with that simply for one question. Can Mikal Bridges hang with LeBron in a 7-game series? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And if he can't, who on Phoenix is guarding LeBron for 4 games more? They don't have one guy on that roster that can deal with LeBron James in a playoff series. Not one. Maybe Jay Crowder. Maybe
he'll put up a fight, but
that's
he'll try.
Mm-hmm.
I will say Phoenix will be able to outscore the Lakers. That's for darn sure because they have Paul and Booker, and Ayton has had a really good season. He's in the upper 90th percentile as a pick and roll man. So he's added that to his game a lot better. I mean, that's kind of what happens when you have one of the best pick and roll ball handlers of all time in Chris Paul. Mikal Bridges is actually starting to look like an NBA role player. And Cameron Johnson, remember, I thought that was kind of a bust pick when they took him at 11. He shoot like 40% from 3 on like 5 attempts a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess shout out to James Jones for picking him out, I guess.
Maybe, but again, I think a lot of that goes back to Chris Paul. You pointed it out when it comes to Ayton being in the pick and rolls. But for shooters as well, when that pass comes on time and on target in the shooting pocket, it's a lot easier to step into one and knock it down than if I have to reach here or reach there and then adjust. So the skill of Chris Paul makes everyone around him better.
Chris Paul is going to get you the ball where you need the ball. You know that. Chris Paul is a Jonesy guy. They're the guards that Jonesy can't stand. But Chris Paul will never get on that list. Chris Paul is probably A1 Jonesy guy, the facilitator, somebody who can get you buckets when you need buckets, but won't shoot you out of a game. You will never hear. There'll never be a story of Chris Paul dribbling out the shot clock and taking a dumb shot with like 3 seconds left. He's going to get you the ball where you need it, and I appreciate that because that keeps Jonesy out the group chats and out my text inbox with complaints.
I do actively maintain a list of point guards I don't believe you could ever win with. So
yes, we are waiting on that show. We're going to have that show at some point in time, probably in the off season. The all-time point guards you can't win with by Mike Jones show. That because people have been begging for that because we talk about that all the time. So
Kyle Lowry is another one that's in that same group. He's not going to shoot you out of a game. He'll get you the ball when you need it, and he knows when to take over.
Exactly. He understands situational basketball versus hero basketball. Some guys just want to be the hero, do everything. Right. Other guys understand the situation. They're going to make the best play for the situation.
He's a thinking man's point guard. He's a thinking man's point guard. All right, real quick in the East. In the East, you still got the Sixers on top. Right now, as of today's show, tied with Brooklyn. Sixers
with
on
the
a little bit
Sixers
of
holding the tiebreaker.
Yes, with the Sixers holding the tiebreaker right now. They tie for the top. How do you, Adio? Now that we have you on the show, where do you see the East shaking up? How do you see that shaking up?
I said it at the beginning of the season when it was KD and Kyrie. I said it again when they traded for Harden. I'm not afraid of Brooklyn. I'm really not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said this before on so many Liberty Ballers comments and columns and Twitter. Brooklyn plays negative defense. You can't win an NBA title when you're in the bottom half of the league in every defensive category.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, after last night's game, I am way more afraid of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for two reasons. One, I feel like they have a more rounded team. Kyrie needs the ball, KD needs the ball, Harden needs the ball. Giannis doesn't necessarily need the ball. Drew Holiday doesn't necessarily need the ball. Chris Middleton doesn't necessarily need the ball. Dante DiVincenzo, Brook Lopez. Like, there's a theme with Milwaukee. They have a chemistry about them that makes them really dangerous in a 7-game series. Because, yes, you're going to have the Giannis MVP triple-double performance for one game. But, hey, you may also get Chris Middleton going off for 45. You might get Brook Lopez going 5 of 6 from 3. You might get Dante going 7 of 8 from 3. Like, there's so many different ways that Milwaukee can beat you. There's only one way Brooklyn can beat you. KD goes off, Kyrie goes off, Harden goes off, or some combination of those three. But they don't play defense. There's not one person that is an answer for Joel Embiid underneath. There's not one. DeAndre Jordan is too old. Blake Griffin is too injured. And they traded away probably their best person to deal with Joel Embiid and Jared Allen.
Mm-hmm. And
He was
LaMarcus
their
Aldridge
best
just
rim
retired.
protector, and they traded him away. And LaMarcus Aldridge is retired. And even with a healthy LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't know how much he's going to be able. He would have been able to stand up against Joel in a 7-game series. Sixers, Brooklyn. Like, that's going to be one of those series where Embiid goes off for like 35 and 17 a game.
Mm-hmm.
But against Milwaukee, that series would go 7. Against Brooklyn, that series could be over in 5 if Embiid is having an MVP type series.
So,
and I really hope that the Sixers hold on to the 1 seed because they've lost 3 straight. I would much rather than be the 1 seed and have to deal with one of Brooklyn or Milwaukee, as opposed to being in the 2 or 3 slot and have to deal with both of them to get to the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Real quick, before we move on, Knicks will have won 8 straight as of today. Old question that we always ask: for real or full fake?
The Knicks are the Knicks are ruining my favorite playoff series that I want. And I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think they're going to stop losing, and it sucks. Knicks, Brooklyn in the first round, I wanted that so bad, but I don't think I'm going to get it, and that sucks so bad.
No, I hear you.
I
feel
wanted
like
to see the city of New York explode.
It's like I want to see that too, and I feel like I don't get it. I don't get it because I'm not quite sure, other than Jay-Z, like, who's a real Brooklyn Nets fan. Like, you know all the people, all the celebrities who are the Knicks fans, and they've been in Brooklyn for a long time, but it's like I always see it's like the Lakers and the Clippers. Remember, you used to always see all the celebrities at the Lakers games. And I always used to feel like the Clippers games would be filled with all the celebrities who couldn't get tickets to the Lakers games. That's what and that's Brooklyn and the Knicks. Even though the Knicks have just been just garbage now for what, 10, 15 years? but still they still carry on that mystique. But nonetheless, Knicks fans are, they feel like the Knicks are coming back, and they've been begging for this since Carmelo, since Steph Marbury, since broken down Steve Francis. They want the Knicks to be back. They see the Knicks on this win streak, and I don't know if they're just a team just playing good an okay team playing good basketball at the time, or are they for real? Are they a team that should scare some teams? Are they a team that should scare if you're the Sixers, if you're Brooklyn, if you're Milwaukee? Should you be afraid of the New York Knicks? Is it time to fear the New York Knicks?
See, it's hard to say because the 4-5 matchup, the 4-5 matchup would be Atlanta, and depending on how long Trae Young is going to be out, that's going to be that's going to be a not so interesting series. So if the Sixers are 1 seed, then you're looking at Sixers Knicks in round 2, perhaps, and same with Brooklyn. Like, who did the Knicks have that can stand up to Joel Embiid in a 7-game series? Julius Randle? No. Like that's the thing. Like, the Sixers, much like the Denver Nuggets, they have that one big man that no one has an answer for.
Oh, let's see. JV, you asked that question about the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed. I started laughing immediately.
No, well, that's what I do. That's what makes me the thinking man point guard. I'm setting you up.
Hold on, JB. Because see, here's what happens.
What happens?
I'm gonna have a brief moment of being extremely blunt. You get past the top 3 in the East, 4 through 8. You're looking at a lot of mediocre teams. I don't think any of them will make the playoffs in the West. You get past the top 3 in the East. I don't think any of them are locks. None of them are locks to make the playoffs in the West. I'm not sure any of them make it at all. And if you're looking at those teams, asking me which one I would fear, the only team below from 4 down that I'd even be worried about as one of the top 3 seeds is Charlotte, and that's all curiosity about playoff LaMelo. That would all be my only. Because I think every other team from 4 down is so extremely flawed. Unless they're playing another one of those teams in that range, they're extremely unlikely to win a series.
No, I hear you. I just want.
Miami scares me a little bit too.
Okay.
Miami, because Miami is capable of getting hot.
Bam is playing really well. Jimmy Butler is still Jimmy Butler, so I can't ignore that, especially when he turns up in the playoffs. And then whatever they can get from Oladipo is like gravy. And I still Miami doesn't really have anybody from a point guard perspective, old ass Goran Dragic, and that's it. And Tyler Hero is kind of taking a step back from season 1, season 2. He's not the flamethrower he was last year, and that's really hurting Miami right now.
No, and that's something, and Jonesy, that's something you and I talked about, especially last season when we talked about the job that Jimmy Butler did with that Miami team in the bubble, getting them ready to play in the bubble and kind of predicting whether there would be some drop off from how they played when it was in the controlled environment of the NBA bubble to getting back to somewhat of a more normalized regular season.
JB, I don't know if you remember this conversation when we had Sullivan Phillips on. He's a guy who used to play overseas basketball. And we were discussing just the differences about just as far as what the basketball you were seeing in the bubble, the effect of not having fans in the building cannot be overstated. There are guys who even against the best of the best competition, you put them in a practice gym where there are no fans in the building, they will be the best guy you have ever seen play. But you got 15,000, 20,000 fans in the seats, and it's different for them. And then there are other guys who will be flat in the practice gym, but the energy from those 15, 20,000 fans will take their game to another level. So the bubble basketball, while it was entertaining last season, from a lot of guys, I just expected to see a different version of that player when we got to this season, even if it's partial fans in the building. So from that standpoint,
this point can also has to be like, this can't be overstated either. Just the concept of being home. Like, you play for example, the Sixers, and like you're home, you're in Philadelphia area. Like, you have like your own bed, you have your own city, you have the place that you're familiar with. Like, that's a psychological advantage that honestly only Miami had last year. Because while it was in Orlando, Miami's maybe like what, 4 or 5 hour drive? Like, that's nothing. But teams coming from Denver, Los Angeles, wherever, asking them to go into Florida, uproot everything about their home, and then have this temporary home, like, that's psychologically detrimental, and it gets to you after a while.
No, you're right.
Very good point.
Very good point. Hey, we're talking with Adio Royster. He is the self-proclaimed black correspondent for LibertyBallers.com.
Senior black correspondent.
Get it right, JB.
The senior black correspondent for LibertyBallers.com. At some point in time, brother, we are going to actually meet face to face. You know, you are vaccinated. I am vaccinated. At some point in time, I just want your business card. I want to see your business card with that order. That's all I want. I need a business card with that over there.
It's the Liberty Ballers logo on one side and the Black Power Fist on the other.
It's on the other side. Exactly. All right, real quick. I want to ask you. I want to ask you this because it's a debate that goes on. I know he's missed a couple of games, but I want to know, who is the defensive player of the year, and why is it Ben Simmons?
He guards 1 through 5. Gobert doesn't. Debate over. Like, that's it. This is not even a debate. Let's move. That was a short question. Moving on. I mean,
I would like to also answer that question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Gobert can't guard Embiid either. He's way too light. I haven't seen Ben Simmons go up against anybody and not be able to guard him.
Yeah.
And I think, and honestly,
even when Devin Booker lit up the Sixers back in February, yeah, Booker had 36 points, but he needs 35 shots to get those 36 points.
That's
what, and like, everybody wants to say Gobert. Everybody wants to say Gobert is the defensive player of the year, and everybody always forgets that Embiid cooked him for 42 in Utah.
Exactly.
Why is it that? Why
made him look like he was way too light? Like, he's more of a help defender than a straight up man-to-man lockdown defender down in that post. Embiid abused him down there.
Why is it that when a 76er is primed to win a postseason award in the NBA, there's somebody from the Utah Jazz with a problem with it? You know, whether it's always why Utah be hating on us so much, man? Why are you
hating on us, Utah? What the hell?
Exactly. Why does Utah hate us so much? Why do they hate the city of Philadelphia? What has the city of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia 76ers done to Salt Lake City, Utah, to deserve all this?
Mad? Listen, are y'all just mad that the Poconos are better? Like, what is it? I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, skiing in Poconos is just as fine as skiing in Salt Lake City. It's fine. It's like, there's no need to be all in your feelings about it, Utah. Just stop it.
I don't get it. I don't get. That's all they do. That is all they do. You know, you see Ben's. You know what's next? Rudy Gobert going to get a sweatshirt that says "not DPOY"? Is that what he's going to do? Is that his?
I'll tell you what it is, and this is a conspiracy that I have. When it comes to Embiid for MVP, when it comes to Ben Simmons for Defensive Player of the Year, when it comes to Brett Brown or whoever for Coach of the Year, Rookie of the year with the Sixers, Ben Simmons that 1 year. It's a theory that the NBA does not want to reward the process under any circumstances. They do not want teams to see that doing it this way, you get an MVP candidate, you get a Defensive Player of the Year, you get an All-Star caliber coach, you get somebody that in Daryl Morey, who's one of the 5 best general managers in sports, not just basketball, but sports. The NBA does not want to see the Sixers get rewarded for any of that. So any excuse they can find, they will, like national media, maybe not the NBA, but national media will not let the Sixers be rewarded for that. And
So
case in point, with the MVP race, the talk, and I don't know if this is like perfect segue, but the talk
I
for
think it is.
MVP is all the talk for MVP is always, has he played enough games? That's always the talk. With it doesn't matter how much better his numbers are. It's okay. He played X amount of games less. There are some seasons where that was true. All right, fine. Rookie of the year, fine, whatever. But MVP, can't deny him that this year. Like he's neck and neck right there with Jokic. And the fact that Jokic is such a heavy favorite, I don't agree with that at all.
I don't agree either.
Good friend of the show, Ashley Baker, has a Instagram live show, and she had me on because she was making the case that she felt there should be more talk about Steph Curry for MVP. And my take was, right now the Warriors ain't even in it. You know, it's like I can't give the MVP to somebody on a team on the outside looking in. You look at Joel Embiid and the season that he's having. I think the fact that, you know, although this is, you can consider the MVP a personal award, you know, a personal award, is you're rewarding them for what they've done for their team. I see Joel Embiid on a team that is number one in the East. And I see him dominating on both sides of the floor. That's why.
To your point, JB, I'm old enough, as are both you guys, to remember when Karl Malone won MVP over Michael Jordan. Not because anyone believed Karl Malone had a better season than Michael Jordan, but simply because the Utah Jazz had a better record that year. So if Utah this year, or excuse me, Denver this year with Jokic is sitting in the 4 seed, and the Sixers are about to have a number 1 seed, what's the conversation? We're moving the goalpost simply because winning was, as far as I can remember, winning has always been a big factor in the MVP, except for Russell Westbrook's triple double year.
Yeah, and I think honestly, to that point,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Jump in. Let me jump in real quick, because I think you bring up a good point, because that was also something that I talked about on Ashley's show. You know, you talk about Russell Westbrook's triple double year. I think the first year he did it, when it was something that none of us, you know, even us in our old age, had not seen in our lifetime. That was what made it that's what made it MVP worthy. When he came back and did it the next year, and they, and Houston still wasn't, basically a factor, then we're not talking MVP. The conversation's different. So, you bring up the question. I guess to answer what you brought up, that was Russell Westbrook was an exception, not an example. That's all I'm trying. That's all I got to say about
that. I don't buy into the whole standings being like a prerequisite for MVP, because like I'm okay with Jokic winning the MVP as the 4 seed, because even though Westbrook got the MVP doing the triple double for the season, Oklahoma City was 6th. So they've proven that they don't mind giving that award to a player that's lower in the standings. And if that's an excuse that they're going to use to give to Jokic, I mean, Jokic is having an amazing season. Embiid is also having an amazing season, but I think it's kind of a coin flip. If you want to give it to Embiid because his team is number one in the East, you're certainly that's certainly an argument. If you want to give Jokic the award because he's got ridiculous offensive numbers as well, then that's another point you can make. But Jokic, the odds for Jokic, he's minus 225. Embiid is plus 325. It shouldn't be that. It should be way closer than that.
Yeah, the spread should not be that close, that far apart at all.
It should not.
So,
I just don't. And I was going to. I was honestly thinking, if Steph Curry, if the Warriors ride Seth Curry like Zorro to get to that 8 seed, if I had an NBA MVP vote, it would go to Steph Curry. If I had an MVP vote, it would go to Steph Curry.
So how much does it factor in? Would it factor in, if at all, for you that Denver is continuing to win after Jamal Murray went down? Does that, in your mind, increase Jokic's chance?
I think that plays a part, because I think there are people who would have expected there to be some drop off, and you see a player who's playing at a high level and keeping that team playing at a high level, even though they've lost a major key. I don't know if that necessarily wins him the award.
I think it helps that Jamal Murray. I think it helps Jokic's case without Jamal Murray, because Jokic can spread his offensive wings a little bit more. He can score a little bit more, do a lot more passing. And you know what? I don't think Denver's completely out of it. Like, they have Aaron Gordon, and they can weather the storm a little bit with Jokic's passing ability and make him more of a point center. So I don't think Denver's completely out of Western Conference Finals appearance. Utah is a completely different story. Without Donovan Mitchell, I think they're cooked. I think they're done. Offensively, they can't hang with Phoenix. They can't hang with Denver. If the Lakers full strength, offensively, they're not hanging with the Lakers either. Utah's gonna really have to dig into that defensive well, because outside of that, there's no way they're making the Western Conference Finals.
There you have it. There you have it. I mean, that's a mic drop moment right there.
The Jazz are treading water right now.
That's because they're too busy hating on Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons for winning awards. That's why they ain't focused.
Do you think it's possible then that Phoenix could slide into the one spot?
They lost the Lakers by 12 in overtime last week. Without LeBron and AD, they came back and won on the 19th, but you could see, like, their offensive cohesion is it seems a little off since Mitchell went down.
The question on the floor was, could you see
against like a LeBron-less, AD-less Lakers team?
Could you see the Suns catching them?
Currently 2 games back.
2 games back? Yeah.
And the Clippers are 3 games back.
And if the Suns are the number 1 team in the West, look out.
I know everybody has written off the Clippers this year because of what happened to them last year. No, everyone just simply refuses to believe in them again. But I do think that Rajon Rondo addition is going to be a lot more important in the playoffs than people are seeming to give that move credit. Yeah. I think playoff Rondo is a real thing.
Real quick before I let you guys go,
Rondo was a thing.
Yeah, it was. Can't deny that. Real quick before we let you go, this is just a crazy question because we're talking about Utah and just whether they're for real or not. You put Utah in a 7-game series against Portland. You think Portland could knock them off? You got Dame Lillard.
Oh.
Say Utah falls. Utah falls to the 3rd seed. Phoenix catches them. Clippers catch them. They fall to the 3rd seed.
Is Donovan Mitchell playing? If
I'll give you
Donovan
both.
Mitchell's not playing, I
If
definitely
Donovan
think
Mitchell,
Portland can win.
Yeah. That's tough. At the very least, I think that series goes 7. I just don't know which way.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you're definitely gonna have those games where Dame is just gonna shoot those wins in there, and then you'll get the CJ McCollum game.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's hard. But with home court, I would say Jazz in 7.
Game. You might even get a Hoodie Mellow game at some point. Dust
Yeah,
them off.
with home court, I give the Jazz in 7.
Okay. All right. Look, Adio Royster, tell us where we can find all of your senior Black correspondents. We need to know. People need to know where they can find you, where they can get everything that you do, everything you got your hands on. What's up?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Adio Royster. I'm sure Jonesy and Brown will put that in the comments and all like that. You can also find my stuff on LibertyBallers.com. I also have a podcast on the Liberty Ballers Network. It's called Out of Sight. The premise of that podcast is that I take one column, one piece from the site in a 7-day period, and then I just kind of highlight that article with the author, and then we kind of deep dive into the piece. So that's every Monday. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Liberty Ballers. Listen to everything on the Liberty Ballers Podcast Network. There's Talking About Podcasts. There's the Gastroenteritis Blues with Steve J. Littman, Emily Anderson, and Dan Ollinger. Talking About Podcasts is amazing. They just had Keith Pompey on last week. Had a lot of different things go up on the site. Had a lot of different things go on the site last week. An extended piece on how Danny Green's floor spacing has just made the Sixers so much better this year. There's a piece coming up this weekend on Shake Milton, and I'm pretty sure there's another piece coming up next week on Matisse Thybulle's increased play after the All-Star break. He's actually been doing really well in terms of shooting. His defense has always been there, but that outside shooting starting to come along as the 3 of the 3 and D is really starting to come together for Matisse, and that's going to be really important in a playoff series against Brooklyn, for example, when you need that extra wing defender to guard one of KD, Kyrie, or Harden.
Awesome. Once again, that is Adio Royster of LibertyBallers.com. Make sure you get all of his work and all of his pieces on LibertyBallers.com. Make sure you download his podcast. You listen to that as soon as you finish listening to Jonesy and Brown. Jonesy
and Brown first.
Yes. Listen to us first. And then you listen to Out of Sight on LibertyBallers.com. Look, you got time, man. You got time. Make it for us. All right. Once again, tell us what you think of this podcast. Hit us up. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at BITW Sports. Download this podcast wherever you find podcasts. Just search for Best in the World Sports. He is Mike Jones. I am John Brown. Shout out to our guest, Adio Royster. Thank you for coming on. We will check you out basically whenever we feel like doing another podcast. It might be next week. It might be 2 weeks from now. Who knows? Whenever we feel like sitting down in front of this microphone and talking some sports.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, man. Peace out, you guys. Have a great weekend.
Peace.
Talk to you soon.